Alright guys, welcome back to another MCreator procedure tutorial. So today what we're going to be looking at is a few different blocks. The first one is going to be under the advanced tab, and if you scroll down a bit, it's going to say, is the mod with ID and then the ID loaded? So basically what this one does is it allows you to test if a mod is loaded on the client or server or even LAN for that matter. So it will check to see if the namespace is actually installed. Now if it's not installed, it's going to return false, so basically it will not do something if it is not installed. This is really handy when you are working with registries or testing if that mod is installed before you do something. It's basically a fail-safe. If something doesn't exist, you don't generally want to apply a block because it might not do something or have the same mechanics that you want. In this case, you would want to fall back onto something that's in your mod already. So for example, if we had something, say in NoobCraft for a planter, then we want to test for this planter, maybe place a planter or a block down. We can basically do that if NoobCraft is installed, but if it's not, then what we want to do is we want to fall back and use something from our own mod. This is really handy. By default, the namespace is set to Forge. There is no colon or registry that you put in here. It's just the namespace, which can be found under your workspace tab and then under the workspace settings, and then it's going to be your mod ID / namespace. So it's this namespace that you're going to be actually using. Or from another mod, it will be displayed under the mod page for the mod. Let's go check that out right now. So once we're in game, what we can do is we can go to the title screen and then click on mods, and then a whole list of mods will be listed under your left panel. And we have a few different vanilla ones. We have the Minecraft version as well as NeoForge, and those ones are always going to be in the list here. And we're also going to have our own mod, which is this one right here. I also put a mod in the mods folder under the workspace run folder. So we have an additional mod right here that we can basically use as an example. What we have is the mod ID and then the namespace of the mod, or the mod ID that we're actually using. So in this case, the namespace is called noob and then craft. So there's no spaces or underscores or anything. This would be the name that you use in the text box here. So if we look at our own mod, we can see that the mod ID is latest. So this ID is going to be different between mods. If you need to find it, this is where you can find it for that other mod here. So we'll be looking at registries next. The next thing that we will do is go to block procedures and then the data tab. And then if we scroll down to the part down here, it says get registry name of. And what this will do is we'll get a registry name of the, like a block in the world. So you can basically use this to get the string of the namespace and registry for a given block that you run an event from. Maybe you can store this as a string to your player or something and then use it in a command later on. This is mostly just for getting the registry and namespace of things. You might need to test and compare if there is a certain block that exists, but for example, you could test if the string is the same as, and then get the string of the registry for the thing, and this would work just fine. You could test that way. And there's also an item version. Go under item procedures and then data and scroll all the way down to the bottom. We have two blocks here. We have one called registry name, same idea as the other one. It gives you the namespace and registry. And if we scroll down a little bit further under the item data, you can see convert registry name and then the registry name and then to a item, or error if conversion fails. When you're working with this block specifically, it's really important to make sure that the mod is actually installed that you're going to be using this for. You can technically use it for your own mod, but because you're not really needing to do that, because you can just select things from the list, you don't really need to in this case. When you're working with that, there's a few other things that you can do when you're converting to a block, and we'll get into that in just a second. The last one you can find is under the entity procedures, and then data. And then if we scroll all the way down to the bottom past the UUID, which is another way to test for things, there's one called registry, and this is basically the entity version of getting a registry name. So you can test for a registry specifically through here. Now I mentioned that you can get a block from this particular item. Now because this is an item, what we're going to end up doing is we're going to need to convert this to a block procedure. We're going to go under the data and then scroll down a little bit where it says convert item to block or error if conversion fails. So now you might notice that there's two different fails. Again, this is really important for making sure that the mod is installed first. I can't stress that enough. Then what you're going to do is you're going to fill out the registry and place this block like this. So in our case, we're going to go NeoForge and then colon, which is the two dots, one above the other. And then what we're going to do is planter block. And that's the block that is currently in that mod that I'm going to be testing for. So what this is going to do is it's going to get the registry for the block that we're going to place, or the item as well, because blocks are also items. So we can actually test for a block registry using this item here. Then we're getting the namespace of that particular block. So we need it from NeoForge, and then we're going to convert it to an item, and then we're going to convert it to a block. So after that, what we can do is we can either pass this over to a variable. For example, we can do block state or planter block. We can use a block state for this. So rather than have to test for multiple things, we can just basically pass this over to a block state variable, and then we can use this block state variable when we need it. Another thing that we can do is, because everything's going to convert to error if it fails, we can also test if the block is error. And if it is, then we can basically have another fail safe and do something other if it is error, at least with the local variable for block states. So let's grab an if statement, and we're going to first test if the mod exists. So we need NeoForge here. If it doesn't exist, what I'm going to do is I'm going to print out a message to console, and we're going to just say NeoForge is not loaded. And then what we're going to do is, if it is loaded, what we're going to do is we're going to put that variable here, and we're going to go ahead and replace the block right above where we click to the block in that mod. So let's go ahead and grab our variable here. We'll put that block state variable there, and we're going to go ahead and offset the location where we click to y+1. And we can set the inventory and keep all that stuff if we want to as well. So that's basically the simplest setup that you can do with converting it. You can also spawn gem or whatever directly with the item if you want to. So let's go ahead and save this, and then we'll pop in game. So let's go ahead and click on a block, any block, it doesn't matter which one. We'll just click on this one, and you can see that we have a few different blocks being placed. This is the block that is under NeoForge. So if we go ahead and click on this, we can see that it's a NeoForge planter, and then there's a colon between the planter block. So that's the block that we've been basically placing. And we can also get that information by holding F3 and then pressing H, and this will enable or disable advanced tooltips. So by default, it's hidden. If you want the information like NeoForge, then the namespace, and then the registry of the block or item, then you need to enable that particular tooltip. So let's go ahead and see what it looks like off, and that's what it would look like normally off. So you don't get all that additional information, and you have to be in the game without any UI open in order to do that. So in that case, we open it up and then we have the information again. All right, so another thing that we can do is we can basically test if that mod is not installed. So we need to first remove the mod from our mod folder in our workspace run folder. So let's go ahead and do that, and then we'll pop in game and test this out again. All right, so let's go ahead and go to the tab for workspace, and then we'll click on open workspace folder, and then we're going to go to our run folder, and then in the run folder we have one called mods. We're just going to remove this one here, and we're going to close out of this, and we're going to then run the game again. What we're going to do is we're going to put that in the corner down here, and when it's finished loading, what we'll do is we'll start game, and then what we can do is pause the game, clear clear the console, and we're going to go ahead and try right clicking, and you can see that it says Noobcraft is not loaded. So this is basically what would happen if the mod did not exist. So we wanted to make sure that we're not placing the block that doesn't exist in the client. So you would run something for your own mod in this case. For example, if we had our own planter, then we would fall back onto that instead of placing the mod that we were originally placing from. So if that makes sense, hopefully it does. But other than that, those are pretty much the blocks that you need to know about for registries. You can test from other mods. It supports commands for some of them, like the registry block ones. Hopefully this makes sense. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe, comment down below, rate the video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Peace out.